Coming up today, the Iowa women looked great all weekend until they didn't. Iowa men's basketball has come close in 3 straight games. They lost them all, and now they're going into the Big Ten tournament. That is all coming up right here on KCRG TV 9. After, we'll go to our Web Extra show. Joining me today, we got a dream team dressed in green. We did not plan it. Jeff Linder from the Cedar Rapids Gazette, along with Madison Hricik from the Cedar Rapids Gazette, covering the women and men respectively all season long. Although, Madison, you were at the women's tournament this past week, while Jeff, you were covering the girls' state basketball tournament. And we had a lot of fun at both tournaments. So, Madison, we're going to start with you. Iowa with big wins over Illinois and Michigan. Final scores there, Iowa 64, Illinois 58, Iowa 59, Michigan 42. What impressed you the most about those 2 wins in the Big Ten tournament to get them to the finals?
I think the big thing that impressed me more than anything else was the fast offensive starts that Iowa had, and then the stellar, consistent defense in those 2 games. I mean, it was really impressive to see how the Hawkeyes went out, as young as they are, managed some really good teams. I mean, Michigan is a very, very impressive basketball program. And they did a really good job sticking to the game plan, executing when they needed to, not letting fouls bother them, not like avoiding heavy foul trouble for most of the tournament. I was really impressed with how they handled it, considering how young they are at their core. And I think that's going to be something we'll probably bring up a little bit more throughout the rest of the women's basketball discussion. But with how young this team is, I was very impressed with the overall showing that they had in Indianapolis this past weekend.
Jeff Linder, you've been covering this team for a very long time. I don't think we've seen an Iowa women's basketball team be this good on the defensive end. I was impressed with their effort on the defensive end. Illinois going 5 of 22 from behind the arc. Michigan went 4 of 21. Anything impress you in that context at the Big Ten women's tournament?
Well, the defense has been great all year for the most part, not on Sunday, but this is a program that's been predicated on offense, outscoring people 100-90 for years. I think it hasn't been that long ago that Iowa was the very last in the nation in scoring defense. So holding teams in the 60s, the 50s, and against Michigan twice in the 40s here in the last couple of weeks is terrific progress.
Yeah, Jeff and Madison, you watched obviously those games and the tough one against UCLA. We're going to get to it in just a second. But from a big picture perspective, this is a really impressive year for Jan Jensen in Iowa. Mm-hmm. I want to get to an audience question from Brad, who says, what's the biggest improvement you have seen in this year's team for both the men and women? We'll talk about the men a little bit later on, but I'll ask you two, what is the biggest improvement? Or I'll ask you, Jeff, to start off with what is the biggest improvement you've seen with the women's team?
Well, we just talked about the defense. I think that would have to be number one. Number two, I think, is the emergence of Journey Houston. I think that's been a very pleasant surprise, probably the most pleasant surprise on this team this year, maybe with the emergence of Chit Chat Wright as number two.
The AP has Iowa as of Monday at number 7. Net has them down at 10. You're thinking this is probably a safe 2 seed. It's at least got a 2 seed resume, Madison, especially after that win over Michigan.
Absolutely. I think that it's almost a lock for them to be a 2 seed at this point. Every bit of bracketology is projecting them as a 2 seed. I don't see a reason for them not to be a 2 seed with the resume that they have, the fact that they've been able to go out on the road and pick up some quality wins, the fact that they've been able to pick up some really big ranked wins at home as well. And I think the fact that they've been pretty consistent for the majority of this season, offensively and defensively, I feel like their resume does send a strong message to the committee that they should be a number 2 seed, they should be one of those 4, and they should have the opportunity to host in a few weeks.
Jeff, Charlie Cream has Iowa. Charlie Cream of ESPN has Iowa as a number 2 seed. Do you agree? 2 seed. With the amount of quadrant 1 wins they have, in the Big Ten, beating teams like Michigan State, Michigan, I got to think it's impressive enough to the committee.
Well, and one thing we haven't brought up is they're going to have 15,000 people there. And everybody likes money, and fans mean money, and I think just the fact that they're guaranteed to have 15,000 is going to make a difference if that's a tiebreaker.
Yeah, it's really tough to beat a team twice, especially in the quick succession Iowa did with Illinois and Michigan. So one more point on the good before we get to the bad is just, and this is for both of you, is what Iowa did against Illinois and Michigan replicable against other teams? Because Iowa's going to have, in theory, a really tough round of 32 matchup with a Power 5 conference 6 or 7 seed.
Well, I would say Illinois is probably the type of team that they're going to get in the second round. It probably won't be Illinois because it won't be a Big Ten team, but probably a mid-level SEC team. You know, a Kentucky and Alabama, Georgia, somebody like that would probably be a possibility as a 7th seed that would come to Iowa City.
Madison, what do you think?
Well, I think one thing that is beneficial with March Madness that you don't necessarily see in every conference tournament is it's not a 24-hour repeat in every case scenario. You do have a day of rest in most cases. You have the ability to rehab, and if Iowa is in fact the host, you get to sleep in your own bed for a night, which does a lot more than I think a lot of people might give it credit for. And so I think that also bodes well too, especially because the team kind of really admitted after the championship title game loss to UCLA that a few of them have been battling some sickness and they're ready to go home, get some meds in their system, relax, recuperate, and then reset ahead of the actual NCAA tournament.
I think one thing we learned on Sunday is that there is a difference between the potential for 1 seeds and just about everyone else in college basketball in the women's game. UCLA 96, Iowa 45, 6 Bruins were in double figures. Madison, you were there covering the game, hoping to maybe see an Iowa win, confetti come down. It didn't happen. UCLA with just too much size, great defense, forcing a bunch of turnovers. What did you see in that contest?
I saw a team on a mission. And it's that simple. I mean, UCLA was making a statement to the selection committee that they should be the number 1 overall seed instead of UConn, even though UConn is entering the Selection Sunday show undefeated. And they really went out there and proved that. If you look at their starting 5 alone, that's basically a WNBA roster right now. And the reality is that is where some of Iowa's youth was kind of exposed, is that you had some of these players who hadn't experienced that kind of tournament, 3-day turnaround. And it does produce some wear and tear, and there was some things that Iowa maybe had planned that weren't executed. Jan Jensen said post-game that she didn't feel like she coached her best game against the Bruins, and so that definitely also played a factor into it. But the reality is as we've talked about it on this show before, Jack, is that, you know, a lot of these top 4 teams in the country, they are head and shoulders above most of the rest of the national conversation in women's basketball right now, and we saw that on full display in Indianapolis.
All right, we're going to talk more women's basketball on the Web Extra show coming up at 7. Talk about the men's basketball team next on Iowa Live.
Welcome back. We're joined by Andy from Ability Physical Therapy and Elite Fitness. Andy, physical therapists provide diagnosis, treatment plans, and patient care for many ailments and dysfunctions of the body. What trends do you see in your clinics as far as what people need assistance with?
Thank you. Yes, so at our clinics,
Welcome back. We're joined by Andy from Ability Physical Therapy and Elite Fitness. Andy, physical therapists provide diagnosis, treatment plans, and patient care for many ailments and dysfunctions of the body. What trends do you see in your clinics as far as what people need assistance with?
Thank you. Yes, so at our clinics, we are outpatient orthopedic, like general outpatient clinics, and we get referrals from physicians, but also walk-in patients that are covered by insurance as well. I would say the top diagnoses we see are like knee and shoulder pain.
Okay, and how long would the typical person need to see a physical therapist before they're symptom-free?
That's a good question. It is highly dependent on the severity of their problem, their symptoms. Our first goal is usually the pain reduction and improved mobility of whatever is stiff or not moving well. And within 2 to 3 weeks, we can get a good idea of, hey, are we going to reach these goals of mobility? And then we can start tapering the physical therapy visits in the clinic so they can go home and work on some strengthening. If we're failing to reach their goals over the course of like 4 to 6 weeks, we would advise them on, seeing a doctor for further assessment and possible treatments.
And how can people find a full list of services and get a hold of you?
They can go to our website, chooseabilitypt.com.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right, welcome back to Pickle Palace. I love this wide shot we got going. I'm Jack Lido alongside Jeff Linder and Madison Hricik from the Cedar Rapids Gazette. Talked a little women's basketball in the last block. We'll have more women's basketball in the Web Extra show coming up. But now let's talk men's basketball and reference that earlier question we got from Brad. What's the biggest improvement you've seen in the men's team? Now, it's kind of a weird question to answer because the team with a new coach and so many, all but one player is different. There's been a lot of improvements just because the team is completely different. I'll start, Madison, by answering. This team is physically, especially defensively, competing with some of the biggest, baddest teams in the Big Ten. They're not trying to outrace them. They're trying to punch them in the nose. It hasn't quite worked against most of the top teams. You did have the win against Nebraska. But what about you, Madison? Your big picture takeaway as we end the regular season of the Big Ten?
Well, I definitely would agree. It is the defensive side of the ball. I mean, one of the biggest things that Ben McCollum has been so big on emphasizing throughout his team is knowing the scout report, executing the scout report. They say it every single media availability, pregame, postgame, you name it, it's mentioned. And a lot of that comes from understanding your opponent and how to beat them. So the actual basketball IQ is so emphasized with his team, and that really stands out. You can see all but just a handful of games this season, I think it's 2 total, have been where Iowa's defense is holding their opponent to less than their season average. That's pretty good. I mean, that's pretty good. And when you look at efforts like the game against Michigan just a couple of days ago, like the game where Iowa won and beat Nebraska, even the game where this most recent couple, I guess it was 2 days ago. I'm losing track of time nowadays. Yeah. But you see these two, both of Nebraska games, I mean, they're putting up a defensive fight and they have the capability of playing well against these teams. At this point for Iowa, it's a matter of getting over the hump, getting through just competing with these teams. It comes now down to beating these teams.
Yeah, and this game against Nebraska was so interesting because Bennett Sturtz only took 10 shots. However, Cooper Koch had 18 points. Cale Combs was awesome with 18 points of his own. I think Nebraska on their senior day just made a couple more winning plays, and I like the way, generally speaking, Iowa matches up with Nebraska. I certainly like it a bit more than Michigan and Illinois because they both have 7-footers in the paint. But ultimately, this was Nebraska coming out on top 84 to 75. I'm not sure we're ever going to see a game like this where Cale Combs and Cooper Koch each have 18 and Bennett Sturtz is kind of held in check. But what were your takeaways generally from that game?
Exactly that there are players on this Iowa roster that can score, that they don't need to always rely on Bennett Sturtz. Bennett Sturtz is going to do a majority of the heavy lifting. That is just how this team is built. However, seeing Cooper Koch, seeing Cale Combs get involved, get those opportunities, and make the most of it on the road, that was a big step for this program. It may have taken maybe a little bit longer than most Iowa fans would prefer for it to be the end of the regular season when we see this kind of explosion from non-Bennett Sturtz players. However, that was a big confidence boost heading into the tournament, because they have now proved that they can make winning plays. They can do things that benefit this Hawkeyes team without their star.
Speaking of players not named Bennett Sturts, Cam Magno had 14 points and 18 rebounds against Michigan. And we'll get more into the X's and O's in the Web Extra, but Michigan wins by 3. I think maybe the best atmosphere we've had in Carver Hawkeye Arena since how long? Your quick thoughts.
That was a fun basketball game. I know that Iowa was kind of really upset that they weren't able to pull away with that win, but my goodness, was that just a fun atmosphere and a fun basketball game to be a part of. You could tell everyone was engaged. You could tell they were having fun. They were enjoying the experience that was playing out in front of them, and you could tell that the players were locked in. You know, everyone talks about how senior nights can be emotional. They can sometimes distract from the game. That was not the case with this Iowa team. They came ready to go. I did have a good laugh with McCollum leading up to the Michigan game, where he said, I don't do senior nights. They're not my thing. He's like, it's just a moment. And I can understand where he's coming from. I can understand it. There's other things that lead up to it, not necessarily just walking out onto the court. But I did think it was rather entertaining that was the case, and then Iowa proceeded to go out and have the performance that they had, even though they weren't able to get it done.
All right, more basketball in the Web Extra. We're going to have the Linn-Mar boys swimming team coming up next on Iowa Live.
George Duran.
Count to 10, George.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Do what? Parker Macho. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Sarv. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Thank you.
All right, welcome back to On Iowa Live. We're here at the Pickle Palace. We're on KCRG TV 9. We're streaming. We're going to continue streaming, talking hoops after this on Web Extra. But for now, let's talk to George Duran and the Linn-Mar boys swimming team. Coach Duran, you're the head coach. I'll introduce you. The two gentlemen on the mic, can you please introduce yourselves and tell me your year at school?
Parker Macho, senior. Sarv Galat, I'm a sophomore.
All right, Parker and Sarv, it's good to meet you guys. You guys finished with your highest overall place in team history, second place at state, in Coach, your first year at the helm of Linn-Mar. What impressed you most about your team in your first year here at Linn-Mar?
I think the biggest thing that impressed me was, we came in a lot of new changes, new staff. Some people left the program, some people joined, and we didn't really start out. We had some goals and everything, but we didn't know how good we'd finish. But we kind of had an idea, and we kind of just chased that dream and ran it to the top almost.
Almost, yeah. And 220 points is enough to win a lot of years. Could have won it in 2025. What is when you have that flip, the flip of the switch of this is a really good team, and then you flip it to this team is state championship level good. Do you remember a time where that switch flipped for you? Was it in practice? Was it maybe at districts? Was it earlier than that?
I think maybe it was the conference meet up in Cedar Falls. We threw down some pretty fast times and fast relays and everything, and I believed the whole season that we could win it and we could do it, but the boys, it took some time to kind of get them on board and everything, and I think after that meet between the individual swims and the relays, they were like, okay, we might actually be able to do this.
Yeah, and Parker, I want to talk about you individually for just a second. Your 4 career individual titles is very impressive. I know you're going to college for swimming. What did it mean to close your career out with a great finish, both as a team and as an individual?
I mean, it was great. We worked all season for it, and it all came together in the end. From doing practices at Kennedy to swimming at Linn-Mar, it was just great for it to all come to it in the end.
Yeah, and Sarv, a similar question to you. What does it mean to swim for this team and to have success for this team?
For me, what it means for swimming for this team is like the pride that you get in swimming this team. So you're looking at we're showing up every day and we're putting your work in, and at the end you like are really successful, because in my event I placed 3rd and I was really satisfied with what I got. And like I remember at the start I had 120 for 100 breasts and I dropped a lot of time, which was really meaningful for me.
And I know dropping time, it's a tough thing in swimming because you're dropping just seconds, half second at a time. Describe to maybe a non-swimmer the work that it takes in the pool, in the weight room, dieting, and this is a question for both of you, especially you, Parker, because I know you'll do it at the Division I level. What does it mean, or how can you become a great swimmer? Because I know it's not just swimming; it's more than that.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say the coaches are definitely a big aspect of swimming, and I listened to all my coaches, took all their advice, and it all came to it in the end. Yep, and swimming was good.
Yeah, Sarv, early in your career, you guys have had a lot of success, and I know it comes not only from the meets, but from practices.
So I'd say for my success, it would be how, like, at the start, I noticed how I was lagging behind. And then I would say how I noticed how I was lagging behind, and I just took steps in and took effort that I took in change, and that led me to success. Yeah. And dropping second by second, I would say, if you miss one day, you're gaining a lot of seconds. So you come in every day and show up every day and give it all you got.
It's a real focus thing every time you step into the pool. Yeah. For 400 free relay, you guys took first. I'm just curious. I think we have you all on the stage. Parker, Riley, Carter, Clayton. You guys are all here.
We're missing Carter.
We're missing Carter. Okay, Parker. So I'll ask you first because you started that relay out. Now I'm pretty sure that was the last relay of the day, or the last race of the day. What's going through your head in the 400 free? Because that's a tough race.
I was just trying to get a good lead out and make sure we were first, and made the boys more confident as we went. And it was a good race, and we got first by a bit, so I liked it.
George, I want to ask you, because I go through the results and the winners and second place, but is there any swimmers or relays from on the stage you'd like to shout out? Because it's not all about first and second place.
Like our team specifically?
Yeah, our team. Swimmers or relays may have gotten third, fourth, but have really impressed you and made the difference.
I'd probably say, well, I mean, everyone always swam lights out for relays. Relays bring something special out of a team because we're not racing for ourselves, we're racing for everyone. But I'd say Carter Byers, he was the one guy on our team. We were kind of playing around with our lineup all year, like, where can we score the most points? How can we make a title run to get a shot at winning it? And we came down after the going into districts. We're like, all right, the most points, we got to have Carter be on the triple relay. So he swam on all 3 relays, awesome swims, and gave us the best shot.
Yeah. For the 2 swimmers who have the microphone, Sarv and Parker, can you tell me what your favorite part of this sport is? I know it might not necessarily be in the pool in meets, or it could be. What's your favorite part about being on this team?
I'd say just the teammates. Being with all the teammates is really fun, and I was driving to practice with my brother every day, and that was something special, and that was last year, so it was good.
Yeah. Sarv, go ahead.
So I would say something special about this is after like meets, we sometimes go to Pizza Ranch or Buffalo Wild Wings.
Yeah.
So that's something special for me because it's a team bonding event and it's really good food.
Yeah, it helps. These guys, these are your closest friends at Linn-Mar, some of your closest friends ever, just because being in the pool, it really brings you closer, right?
Yeah, I would say in the pool it brings us closer, not only as teammates, but being in the pool also helps us as students too, because you're like focused in the pool, and then this also brings in the school because you're also focused academically, and it shows a lot. As you could see, my grades have gone up and my time has dropped.
That's really impressive. And Parker, you're a senior. Thumbs up for the rest for your underclassmen who are coming back next year, right?
Yeah, they'll do really good next year. I mean, they're probably going to win, so we'll see.
All right, we'll see.
That's the goal.
Yeah, same time, same place next year when you guys do win a state championship. We really appreciate everybody coming out. We're on KCRG TV9 now. Web Extra coming up next, YouTube and KCRG.com. Thanks to the Linn-Mar boys swimming team. We'll see you on Web Extra. Can I just say what's going to happen? Okay, cool. Hey, everybody, and Madison and Jeff. The show is continuing on YouTube and on KCRG.com. We are, as I understand it, not having any commercials. So we are just going to go until my producer pulls me off the air, which will probably be in about 30 minutes, but you never know with the way these two talk. We'll talk men's basketball, women's basketball, and some of these guys' specialties, including
Jeff.
women's wrestling
This is Jeff.
and
1, 2, 3,
high
4,
school
5,
girls
6, 7, 8,
basketball.
9, 10.
2.
4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 9.
It's OnIowa Live, where we talk sports. Proudly sponsored by Ability Physical Therapy, Elite Fitness, Empowering Excellence Charter School, and Pickle Palace.
Welcome back to Pickle Palace. Welcome back to OnIowa Live. We're talking women's basketball, men's basketball, and then a little grab bag with our two guests, Jeff Linder and Madison Hricik from the Cedar Rapids Gazette. Might get a little weird here. No commercials. We're here on Web Extra. We're going until our producer pulls us off the air. Guys, we're going to start with women's basketball. Obviously, Iowa takes a tough loss against UCLA, but in this reporter's opinion, you're just playing with house money there because UCLA is such a good team. Yeah. I don't know if anyone outside of the Iowa women's basketball locker room expected Iowa to get a number 2 seed in the Big Ten tournament and to make the Sunday game. Obviously, you'd like that Sunday game to be a little bit closer, but before we get into the individual players, your general takeaways from what I think is a pretty great regular season and Big Ten tournament season for Iowa.
Well, I was kind of playing with the schedule before the season. I had Iowa at 21-8 overall and 12-6 in the Big Ten, and they went above that. Don't ask Coach Jensen if she thinks they overachieved because she won't like that. But they came close to their ceiling so far, and a loss like the one they had against UCLA, you can just flush that, and we're 6 days away from Selection Sunday, and we'll see who comes to town.
Yeah, Madison, your first year covering Iowa women's basketball full-time, and I got to imagine impressive to you because a lot of people nationally, I'm not saying you or us, they know Iowa as Caitlin Clark, Lisa Bluter, fast, offense. This was a completely different team, but achieving similar levels of success.
Well, I think one of the things that stood out to me was the obvious player improvement throughout the season. We saw Chit-Chat, right, go from a very, very pass-first focused point guard to somebody who's willing to take the shot when she has that opportunity. We saw Journey Houston step into this role of leadership as a true freshman and her being able to generate these points. We saw Ava Hayden really break out as a star at the 5. And so to me, the individual player improvements throughout the season has just been so much fun to watch because bottom line, I've said it before and I'll say it again, these are all underclassmen that I've just mentioned. Like, there's still room to grow for them, and that makes it really exciting for Iowa fans because they may have, I don't even want to say that they've hit their ceiling for this year yet because, I mean, the NCAA is where you're supposed to hit your ceiling. Yeah. But that's just 1 year. What could they look like in 3 years for some of the freshmen? What will they look like in 2 years for the sophomores? Like, there's so much available room to grow that it just opens up a world of possibilities for this program.
Yeah, I agree with Maddie. I think 2028 is their gold year. I think that's the one that could be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it could be huge. I know we've talked nationally about this year's junior class with Madison Booker for Texas, Audie Crooks, of course, for Iowa State. But how about the sophomore class specifically at Iowa with Ava Hayden and Taylor Stremlow? That's huge. But this year's not over yet, of course. No. And one player Iowa fans kind of need to see healthy, and we have enjoyed covering these past few years, is Hannah Stolke. I know you covered her at Cedar Rapids, Washington, and she is going to really deserve this week-plus long break after her apparent elbow injury against Illinois that she was able to play through. How important has her scoring and leadership been, Jeff, this season, and how important will it need to be in March or in late March?
Oh, I think it's been great, and she's going to have to step up a little bit more. She didn't score on Sunday. They're going to need 15 and 12 out of her to be successful in the tournament. The thing that's neat about Hannah is just the way she's grown personally. She's kind of come out of her shell and really become a lot of fun in the interview room, and you can see it out on the court as well.
Yeah, and X's and O's, it's really, she's made strides. Perhaps the bigger strides, honestly, have been from how shy she was in high school to who she was now. But your thoughts on Stolke on the court coming up over the next few weeks as she tries to get healthy?
Well, I think one of the things that stood out to me was just her willingness to play. I mean, Jan Jensen said after the Illinois quarterfinal game that she actually approached the wrestling trainers leading up to the tournament because her injury was a common wrestling injury, and they found a way to tape her arm so that she felt comfortable being able to play. And on top of that, as I said earlier, this team was dealing with a little bit of illness in Indianapolis too, and she was affected by that. So the fact that she was able to battle through this illness, through this elbow injury to when, I mean, it was earlier before, I think it was last Tuesday leading up to the tournament, you know, Jensen made it sound like she wasn't 100% sure if Stolke was even going to be available for the quarterfinal game. So for her ability to not only persevere, but do so in a way where she's able to be successful in the quarterfinal and semifinal game of the Big Ten tournament, that's huge. And she's going to need to continue to do that. Obviously, these next couple days are going to be really important in terms of getting healthy, strengthening it up a little bit, relaxing, resetting, all of those things. But I was very impressed with just her tenacity in Indianapolis.
Yeah, the other player I think people are going to fall in love with late this March as they watch her on ESPN is Ava Hayden, who as a sophomore has improved maybe as much as anyone in the country. Shades of a player you covered a lot, Megan Gustafson. She's really, Hayden that is, not in the Hannah Stolke mold. She's more in the Monica Sonano, Megan Gustafson mold. What have you seen from Hayden this year that has made you think, oh yeah, maybe she has improved that much?
Yeah, and this was kind of what I expected from her as a freshman, which I guess my expectations were a little bit too high. But boy, she's really come along. She's really athletic, and you know she's got a mid-range shot that's really kind of unconventional looking, but it works pretty well. And she's just so handy around the rim, athletic, quick. She's another one of those rim runners that has a lot of success in this system.
Your thoughts on Hayden and how important she needs to be, because she had a good game against UCLA, but against certain teams, especially in the Sweet 16 and perhaps Elite 8, you need to have a great game from Hayden.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I mean, she needs to continue to be the consistent presence down low that she's been throughout this year. One thing I will say that is very interesting, and this is coming from somebody who I didn't get to watch as many of the earlier season games for Iowa women's basketball than I did the latter half, but one thing that I did get a chance to talk to her about is her just kind of development into becoming a vocal leader on the court. That really kind of started after Taylor McCabe's injury, and her and Taylor Stremlow kind of came together, said, all right, we need to be a little bit louder, a little bit more vocally engaged on the court. And now it almost feels like when you can't hear her, she's almost too quiet. Like I feel like I could hear her from the court, and we were sky high in Indy. We were way up high. And so, and there were moments where I was like, I feel like I could hear her up here. Yeah. She's so loud and she's so engaged, and you can tell that she's absolutely in it. She's cheering for her teammates as they do well. She's getting excited about her game, and her just adrenaline flowing through is so big for this team. She's such a huge momentum swinger, and that'll be key at the tournament.
And Jan has said that she's told Ava, hey, kid, you've earned the right to use your voice. You've earned the right to demand the ball, and it's time that you start doing that.
Yeah, the thing with Hayden that impresses me so much is not when she gets the ball, it's the 5 to 10 seconds before she gets the ball. And that's something some of the best post players in the country can do. Okay, we've talked good and we've talked bad. Let's talk a little about what's next. Who does Iowa want to see in the NCAA tournament coming up? It's funny, looking at Charlie Cream's bracketology, Iowa is a 2 seed, projected to face Oregon, a 7 seed, should the 7 seed Oregon win, of course. The other 7 seeds in the bracket are Washington, Georgia, and Illinois. So it just so happens 3 Big Ten teams. You're an AP voter, Jeff, so you have a sense of the scene nationally. It's clear Iowa is up above that 6, 7, 8 seed level. In theory, they could match up with one of those teams. Do you like their chances?
Yeah, of course. And if it comes down to those 4 teams, I'm betting it's going to be Georgia, because I think the committee is going to try really hard to keep the other Big Tens away from Iowa City. And if it was Georgia, who do they have as the 10, by the way?
In the Oregon matchup?
Yeah.
So it would be Iowa, a 2
South Dakota
seed,
State?
South Dakota State,
okay.
a 10 seed.
So
a really good
that would
team
be
at a
fun.
summit.
Yeah, and if it was Georgia, that'd be Katie Abrahamson-Henderson coming back from Georgia, because she's a Cedar Rapids, Washington grad as well. I think I'd be partial to that.
Madison, I I tend to agree with Jeff that no matter who it is in the 7, 8, 9, 10 matchup, Iowa matches up pretty well. Do you feel, do you agree they match up well with pretty much any 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 seed? And do you feel they can compete with another 2 or 3 seed and maybe even a 1 seed if Iowa could possibly get to the Sweet 16 and Elite 8?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think getting to the second weekend would be a huge accomplishment for this team, and it would be a huge confidence boost for this team. It almost feels, I don't want to say the expectation for them to make it to the second weekend, but in a sense, it almost does feel like an expectation. The way that this Iowa team has performed throughout this season, it feels like they're able to compete against those 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. I mean, those seeds, it feels like Iowa is able to compete and surpass them. That would project them into that second weekend. Now, when you get to the second weekend, whether it's Fort Worth or Sacramento, then I think you're really looking at, okay, when the bracket is eventually revealed next Sunday, what does this path look like? And where do they end up on which side? Because I think that their path and where they end up in the grand scheme of things will determine how easy or difficult it is to make it to an Elite 8 game or even to try and compete for a Final Four spot.
Yeah, and we've been kind of saying it without saying it this whole time. But the 4 potential 1 seeds are South Carolina, in no particular order, South Carolina, Texas, UConn, and UCLA. And Jeff Linder, those 4 are the best, not particularly close. LSU, Iowa, Vanderbilt, they're not quite at that level yet.
Well, Vanderbilt's beaten. I think they've beaten Texas. They've been very competitive. On the other hand, they had a bad, I think, quarterfinal loss in the SEC tournament. So I would say Vanderbilt might be the most equipped to hang with one of the 1 seeds because they've played the SEC schedule. Iowa played UCLA twice. Wasn't competitive either time. They played UConn and had trouble with them. I just think those 4 likely number 1 seeds are so far ahead of everybody else. It's going to be really hard for somebody to knock one of them off before the Final Four.
Yeah. Again, I referenced the house money thing. If you're Iowa and you get to the second weekend and you take care of business against a potential 3 seed, then all the house money in the world against a potential 1 seed in Sacramento or Fort Worth. Either of you guys have any final thoughts on women's basketball?
I think this has been a really fun first year. I feel very lucky that I've been able to tag along with Jeff here for a lot of this season. It's been fun to see such a young team have so much success so early in their young careers. And I think that's the thing that stood out is that we have talked about how young they are and how well they're doing. I do also want to say, it is really fun to watch Hannah Stolke and Kylie Feuerbach give everything they have in their final year, knowing that they're turning it over to this younger roster as well.
This is year 19 for me covering the Iowa women. I would say it may be the most enjoyable of the 19. It's been the kids have been a lot of fun. They bring a lot of joy to the table, and it's been a fun ride.
And they definitely mirror their head coach and just their joy and love for the game, no matter if they're on the court, on the practice court, which we've actually gotten to see them on the practice court a little bit, or off the court. So it's been a lot of fun. Jeff, we'll talk a little girls basketball with you in just a second, but I do want to move on to the men's basketball and the Big Ten tournament, which is coming up. And, well, it's a little too confusing for a graphic, but here's the deal with Iowa. Iowa faces Maryland or Oregon, the winner of that game. And should Iowa beat Maryland/Oregon, they would play Ohio State. Should they win that game, they would play Michigan in the stepladder on Friday. So, Madison, you've covered the men's basketball team all year. What do you think about their chances in kind of a tough draw as a 9 seed facing perhaps Oregon or Maryland? Maryland you already lost to, and Oregon is a lot better than a typical 16 seed.
Well, Oregon is a lot better than they were when Iowa faced them in the regular season as well. However, I do think that for a 9 seed, Iowa does have, on paper, a relatively realistic chance to have a rematch with Michigan on Friday. I think that it's not going to be easy. I think it's going to be a little bit of a bumpy ride, but Iowa has beaten all 3 of these teams at some capacity. So I think it does bode well for the Hawkeyes in the sense that you have the confidence that you've competed and performed against these teams. It's a matter of, can you do it again? Can you do it on neutral court? And can you do it back-to-back to potentially back? And so that's going to be the hard part. And we've talked about how this is such a new team with so many first-year transfers in this men's basketball roster. This is going to be their first time experiencing the Big Ten tournament. This is not a very easy tournament to win in. There's a reason that this is the last men's basketball tournament that takes place before the selection show for the official field of 68. And so it's a lot of fun. It is a lot of fun, and I'm very excited, but I do think they have a good shot to make it to play Michigan once again.
Yeah, and Ben McCollum in year one, I think in terms of regular season standings, perhaps Iowa fans expect a little better than a 9 seed. But when you look at the strength of the Big Ten and where Iowa is projected to be in the NCAA tournament, I figure they have to be pretty happy about that. What about you, Madison? Were you expecting them to be around this area, both in Big Ten seeding and NCAA tournament seeding?
You know, I think for NCAA tournament seeding specifically, right now ESPN has them as a 10 seed facing Kentucky in Philadelphia for that first round, with a round of 32 matchup most likely being against UConn, Merrimack being the 15 seed in that matchup. So I think the 8, 9, 10 spot is a really, really tough spot to be in, because you're likely in a round of 32, you're facing a 1 or a 2 seed. That's pretty difficult regardless of who it is. But I think for a first year in such a new environment with such a unique playing style where Iowa's undersized, they're competing against these teams that are storied, they're blue bloods in their own right. I think that they've done pretty well. I would feel like this is a pretty good year for Iowa men's basketball because it's laying a foundation. There's opportunities to grow. I didn't think they were going to win the Big Ten regular season title outright year one. That didn't feel realistic. But I think it provides a stepping stone. There's going to be opportunities for McCollum to recruit. There's going to be opportunities for players to develop. And there's going to be opportunities for Iowa to get those signature wins that they missed out on earlier this year. And so rebuilds take time. It's not necessarily something that's instantaneously gratifying as much as a lot of fans would like and as much as the modern era of college athletics has developed into. But sometimes, I guess, the slow burns are the ones that end up being the most gratifying in the end. So if this one takes, a year or 2 or 3 to really develop, it might bode well. But I think in terms of just this coming week in Chicago, I think the 9 seed felt a little low to me. I thought they would get that double bye. But again, I think their path is maybe a little bit better than if they had to, go and face like Illinois and all of those in some of these other programs that they've kind of really struggled with earlier this year.
Yeah, they've competed with Michigan. One guy that is very likely to be named All Big Ten first team before the tournament starts up in earnest is Bennett Sturtz, who had a good game against Michigan, a pretty poor performance last Sunday against Nebraska. Madison, your thoughts on Sturtz and what Iowa needs from him? Should fans be concerned? Because it was a very uncharacteristic day, only taking 10 shots against Nebraska.
Yeah, it was a slow performance from Sturtz against Nebraska the second time around. Let me make sure we're clear on which game, but specifically the one that was yesterday. I don't necessarily know if it's any cause for alarm at this point, just because this almost feels like a one-off. He's been so consistent throughout the rest of this year that one-off game doesn't determine a player's capabilities. And if that one-off game was on the road in Lincoln, then maybe that might actually bode well because he'll be fine and ready to go in Chicago on Wednesday morning. You never know. But I think with a player like Bennett Sturtz, he knows that he didn't play his best game in Lincoln. He's going to need to play better in Chicago. He's mindful enough as a person and as a basketball player to understand what's at stake at this point. He's seen what it takes to succeed and to find success in college basketball, and I think that that's going to help too. He loves playing in tournaments. Well, guess what? We're in tournament time. So
yeah, it's officially time.
Exactly.
I was really excited what I saw out of Cale Combs on Sunday against Nebraska and Cam Manyow last Thursday against Michigan. We've been kind of saying it all year. Yes, Bennett Sturtz is the Batman, but he needs a Robin. He needs a second, and sometimes it's been Tavion Banks. Occasionally it's Manyow. Occasionally it's Cooper Koch, who would hit 5 or 6 3-pointers. But those two really impressed me, especially Combs on Sunday. We'll start with him. His ability to just say, you're going to guard Sturtz, you're going to double-team Sturtz, that's fine. Just give me the ball. I'll be quick on the 3-pointer. It was tough with Cale Combs because he was kind of struggling earlier this year. What was he doing on the court? We see his strength here with that big 3-pointer against Nebraska.
Yeah, that's a huge confidence boost for Combs because of the fact that he had been pretty quiet for most of this year, and he had a couple moments where he was really good. I think back to the game at Purdue way back earlier this year where he had a really strong performance, also was in double figures in that game, and he looked against Nebraska recently like he did against Purdue. He looked relaxed, he looked in control. You could see his confidence growing as the shots were falling, and you could see him go from, okay, my shots are falling, to, okay, yeah, I'm going to make this shot with less than 3 seconds to go. Like, you could see that wherewithal click, and that was really, really big. And again, that's such a good positive sign for Iowa because they needed to prove that somebody other than Bennett Sturts can take over a game, and that's what we saw, even though it didn't come with the outcome Iowa fans wanted.
A concern on perhaps the roster list is pure size. Iowa does not have the same size as a Michigan or a Oregon with Nate Biddle and some of the other teams in the Big Ten, and frankly some of the other teams in the country. But Tavion Banks and Cam Manyow down there in the middle, even though they're not as big as a typical Power 5 5-man, I think they've performed very consistently. Manyow had not had a real pop game until Thursday when he had that 8-rebound, 18-point performance against Michigan. You want to see more of that out of Manyow. Can he compete with some of the best bigs in the country at only 6'9"? He's obviously pretty strong, but can he, play above his height per se?
So difficult to do. When you're undersized and you're going against 7-foot centers, that's not easy to do. And so you can tell that Iowa was creating set plays for him to kind of find weaknesses down low in the paint. And against Michigan, he was able to find some. I think Michigan was playing a little bit on their heels in that game. I don't think the Wolverines expected Iowa to come out the way that they did defensively, and I think that flustered them a little bit. And Cam Manyow certainly took advantage of that. We've seen Cam take opportunities or try to have these opportunities where he'll go and see if he can get some things going, see what's going on down low, try and figure out physically what it's going to be like. And that Michigan game, you could see something switched in him, and he was ready to go. He was ready to compete. I do think, though, that moving forward, Iowa is going to want to find some more size just for the consistency side of things. You're going to want to be able to consistently compete against the Big Ten, and you're going to need somebody that is just straight up really tall to be able to do that.
Yeah, and I think that was something we might have gotten. We actually got a question. I think it was about the women's team trying to recruit a tall three-point shooter in the portal. But I think the same thing can be said about the men's team. I think it goes to show how impressive Ben McCullum has been this season to take a team with mostly guys from a little school called Drake. Sorry about that, Jeff. Took them over from the blue and white over to the black and gold and turned them into a legitimate Power 5 contending team. Looking ahead to the Big Ten tournament, I don't think most reasonable people think Iowa is going to win, but can they make some noise? I think what's fun about the Big Ten tournament this year is it's important for the selection committee. Iowa is likely going to play, if they win against Oregon and Maryland, they're going to play an Ohio State team that probably needs one win to lock themselves into the tournament. And if you're Iowa, if you get a win against Oregon and then Ohio State, you're probably locked out of Dayton. You're getting a bye into the 8 or 9 game. And should Iowa beat Ohio State and Michigan, they have a chance. It's not a very high chance, but I think they have a chance at a 7 seed. So what are you looking for? Do you think Iowa can get that third win against Michigan? I know we're looking ahead of ourselves, but do you think Iowa can get that if they get another shot at Michigan? And just the things you're looking forward to in the Big Ten tournament this week.
I think it's going to be really difficult for Iowa to play 3 games in a row and surpass one of the top teams in the country. That's going to be a tall task, and that would be a tall task for anybody, not specifically just Iowa. I think where the Hawkeyes might have the advantage, I've always believed that the team that's coming in with the momentum sometimes might have an edge because they've got that confidence, they're in a rhythm. It's kind of like playoff hockey, where sometimes the team that won a 7-game series kind of almost has a little bit more momentum than the team that won a 4-game series because you're already in that rhythm. Doesn't always pan out that way, especially in basketball tournaments where it's simply one game versus playoff hockey is up to 7. But sometimes it does help. And I mean, we just recently saw that with you and I this past weekend too, with the Panthers punching their ticket 4 games in 4 days, winning that one. I think what I'm looking forward to the most with this Big Ten tournament is seeing a Ben McCollum team in a massive tournament in this way. We've seen them in smaller preseason, early season tournaments. We've seen what he can do at Drake at the mid-major level. I'm excited to see what he does at the Power 4 in the Big Ten, in the NCAAs, because he seems to really enjoy that time of year. That's where he's flourished as a head coach. So I'm looking forward to seeing that side of him kind of unlock and reappear on the national stage.
Do you think, does Iowa still have some work to do to make the tournament? Are they in regardless of what happens?
I would say, I've said from the beginning of the Big Ten side of this schedule that if you can get 10 wins, you're in a pretty comfortable spot, because it's not easy to play in the Big Ten. And Iowa picking up that win, that home win over Nebraska, was huge. To me, I think that's kind of what cemented it. I think it would take a total meltdown and maybe even some additional help from maybe beyond the Big Ten for Iowa to be removed from the tournament at this point, considering there's still a 10 seed. There's 16 seeds in this tournament. That's a pretty big buffer. I don't think Iowa wants to see them drop any lower than a 10 seed, but I think it would be really difficult for this Hawkeye program to miss the NCAA tournament at this point.
You have to remember the bubble this year, as in teams on the bubble and teams just inside the bubble, is really bad. So Iowa would need a lot of hurting from bubble teams winning. I'm trying to think of the opposite word of health. Let's talk a little about another tournament that actually went on in Coralville. Iowa women's wrestling competes in the first NCAA sanctioned women's wrestling meet in Coralville. It's kind of awesome that Coralville, not exactly a tiny town, but compared to Kansas City and Philadelphia, where some of the NCAA men's tournaments have been, they get this tournament, and it was great. This is some file video here. Iowa gets 3 individual national champions, Kennedy Blades, Kylie Welker, and Valerie Solario, and come in second to McKendree. So you've covered a lot of Clarissa Chun this year, Madison. Your thoughts on this event and Iowa's season as a whole?
Have an opportunity to see a little bit of history. I didn't get an opportunity to actually witness the tournament in person. I was in Indianapolis while that was going on, but I was able to watch some of it. It was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it, and I've enjoyed covering women's wrestling. It's a brand new sport for me. I've kind of learned throughout this year, but I mean, you talk about a program that has really put the sport of women's wrestling on its back. Iowa has, and this has been a historic year for not only just women's wrestling, with this being the first NCAA sanctioned championship, but also Iowa women's wrestling. Not necessarily in the way that Iowa would have hoped, though, because they had their first loss in regular season in national duels earlier this year. And by first loss, I mean first loss like ever
as a program.
As a program. And then you also saw them not have the ability to three-peat a national title for that first ever NCAA championship. And I think the thing that made it almost like the bitter pill to swallow was that it was separated essentially by one match, and that was Reese Larramendi and former Hawkeye Bella Meir at 145. Bella Meir getting the pin in the first period. The pin was that extra bonus point that just gave McKendree the window. Bella Meir is from North Central, so it didn't necessarily affect North Central standing, but it gave McKendree that window when you looked at how many finalists Iowa had versus how many finalists McKendree had. And so that's one of those things where it's just it hurt a little bit for Iowa that was an opportunity, especially considering Larramendi was undefeated all season long until that matchup, and had actually beaten Bella Meir twice earlier in the year as well. So it was a really fun year to cover it. I had a really great time. You would have liked to have seen Iowa just go the whole way and get that national championship on the home stage essentially, but I mean, this sport is growing, and the other schools have very quickly caught up and made it fun.
Yeah, and it's similar at a high school level. You know, Jeff, we don't often talk about high school sports, not enough at least here at On Iowa Live. But last Friday night, we covered, the two of us, one of my favorite events to cover every year, the 3A Girls State Championship game, because it's such a silly, fun, late tip-off. We almost always have at least one Eastern Iowa team, and we had another two in Mount Vernon and Maquoketa. Maquoketa ends up winning as the 2 seed, beating Mount Vernon with a team full of seniors. You've covered a lot of girls basketball in your career at the Gazette, and you're one of the best in the country at it. What impressed you about Maquoketa? And I know Mount Vernon, they're not done. They've got a pretty solid team coming back next year.
Yeah, we'll start with Mount Vernon first. Yeah, they've got a really good future ahead. If you've got Savannah Wright, you've got a chance against just about anybody because she's terrific. The thing that really surprised me about Makokata, and you've got to be happy for them. This was a program that hadn't had a whole lot of success. I think this was the first girls' state championship in any sport at Makokata. And these 7 seniors have taken this program and lifted it to a height that, not many people would imagine. And I guess they're going to go to Hawaii because of it.
Really?
Have you heard about that?
I've not heard about that.
So when these kids were in 3rd grade, one of the fathers said, "Hey, if you guys win a state championship, I'm going to take you to all to Hawaii." So it's Aloha now. And, I think this summer they're going to be going to Paradise, but it's neat with the seniors that they had to see the steady climb in 4 years, and you can't help, we're supposed to be unbiased and stuff, but you can't help but be happy for those kids.
Yeah, of course. Cora Wydell leading with 21 points.
Yeah.
Her and Savannah Wright are actually Athlete of the Week nominees, so go ahead and vote. We appreciate everybody for sticking around here on Web Extra. Thank you so much to Jeff Linder and to Madison Hricik from the Gazette for joining me. Next week, we'll be here at the Pickle Palace talking about Iowa men's basketball at the Big Ten tournament, as well as both the Iowa men and women at the NCAA tournament. Thank you so much to Mike Gerken, our director, and Aaron Rooney, our producer, for keeping us on the air, and we appreciate all of you for watching on Iowa Live.